What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 2 Studs and Duds film review, where we're going to be talking about what I saw on tape from every game throughout the week, reviewing the studs and duds for the week, and mixing in my update for my Madden 19 custom roster. Now, the Week 1 show was an absolute megalodon. We're going to get right into it here. Make sure you hit that like button. Follow me on Twitter at TFG_football. And here we go. Starting with the Thursday night opener, Baltimore at Cincinnati. Not a ton of surprises in this one, to be honest. Cincinnati proving yet again that they have a bunch of young studs on both sides of the ball, but mainly on that defense. You know, if you asked me 2 years ago what I thought of the future of the Cincinnati Bengals, I would have said, well, that defense is just getting old and I don't know who's going to fill in. Well, now you got Carl Lawson, Sam Hubbard, Jesse Bates, William Jackson. On the offensive side of the ball, you got John Ross, Joe Mixon, Billy Price, a nice young center. This team has drafted really well and it's paying dividends. It's a much more competitive team this year on both sides of the ball. So good for them starting off 2-0. And then on the Ravens side, I wasn't really surprised by their performance. You know, we know this is not a great offense. It's hard to travel on the road, especially against a good defense like Cincinnati, and put up points. CJ Mosley goes down in this one. The defense just wasn't enough, and it turned out to be a pretty good game in the end. I think these two teams are actually really competitive together. And with the Steelers' struggles, I think it's going to be a three-way race between these two and the Steelers for the AFC North. And hell, the Browns aren't even that bad this year. So with all that said, based on what we saw, cross-referencing with the PFF grades for the week, no movement this week. This one really went according to plan. Moving on to Houston at Tennessee. Now, this one has a lot of movement in it. No Marcus Mariota for the Titans in this one. They did a really good job to pull out a tight win in this one. Really good scouting by the special teams to know that they're going to come out and punt block and put nobody on their gunners so that they could have their lefty block protector get the snap and get a huge play that just shifted the momentum in this game for a special teams touchdown. So good on the Titans' part, better coaching clearly in this one. But the offense was pretty stagnant. A nice play by Tyrod Taylor in this one. And then the defense really capitalized on what is proving to be a terrible Texans offensive line. Deshaun Watson still hasn't really shown any of those sparks that we saw from him as a rookie that had everyone so excited. Could take some time coming off that ACL injury. He did make some nice throws in this one. But then that Texans defense just playing so uninspired. You know, no Jadeveon Clowney in this one. Whitney Merciless, you can't find the guy. Outside of J.J. Watt, this team just doesn't have any real playmakers. This linebacking core is playing pretty bad. The secondary we knew wasn't going to be very good. That's proving to be pretty true. The safeties are all right. So the Titans are going to go to Jacksonville this week. I'm really hoping Mariota can play. But right now, someone in this division has got to prove that they can take on the Jags right now. Is it the Colts? Maybe. We'll get to that game. But for the Texans, I'm really worried. You know, they'll get Clowney back, but this is a team that needs to play elite defense to really stay in games, because I don't think it's a very good offense. So they have the talent to turn this thing around, but it's really going to come down to Bill O'Brien, the leaders in that locker room, to make some things happen here, because it's not looking good right now. So for Houston, there are some risers in this one, despite talking all that crap about them. So Will Fuller, in his first game of the season, looked exceptional. He's going to get a +1 this week. Nick Martin as well. You know, it's hard to find good performances amidst really bad lines, but he's playing really well at center, starting to reach sort of that potential. We know his brother is an absolute stud for the Cowboys, but Nick goes in the second round coming off an injury. He's starting to kind of lock down in there at center. Really good pass protector, offering at least some stability on that line. But then falling is going to be Whitney Merciless. Coming off a serious injury, was even playing some off-ball linebacker this week, showing that he probably doesn't have what he once had as a pass rusher. So he's definitely on the decline right now. And then on Tennessee's side, it's going to be Taywan Taylor getting a +1 this week. Did have that nice play, but he is starting to get a lot of reps in this offense. He's looking actually like the number 2, as Rashard Matthews is going to fall down too. Rashard Matthews has barely played in the first couple weeks. He is strictly a slot guy at this point, and he's not playing very well. Clearly not a big role in this offense. So the gap starting to narrow there between Taylor and Matthews. It might not be too long before we're actually ranking Taylor above Rashard Matthews. And then a +1 going to go to Adoree Jackson. Did a good job, spent a lot of time on DeAndre Hopkins in this one, had an incredible interception. This guy was a top 20 pick last year, a ton of athletic potential, but he's proven that he's got some good skill there at corner as well. And it's something they really need, because Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, good football players, but they're really not all that in coverage. Neither of those guys are very fast or quick. They're just kind of heady, smarty players. So that's going to do it for Houston at Tennessee. Now let's talk about what was, in my opinion, the game of the week. Minnesota at Green Bay. Minnesota really impressed me this game on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the offensive line didn't dominate by any means, but it's proven to be at least serviceable and not be a huge liability on this team that's just stacked everywhere else. Kirk Cousins was incredible all game long. Really just money all day. Accurate, decisive, everything you would look for in a $30 million quarterback. And then on the Green Bay side, this team did a lot of nice things to help out Aaron Rodgers, who's basically playing on one leg right now. The receivers won their matchups most of the day. Really, none of the corners for Minnesota had a good day. The offensive line for Green Bay was incredible all day long. Rodgers had all day to throw, which he's going to need without that mobility. And then defensively, they fell apart in the second half, but they do pass the eye test. They're much better than in years past. They have real NFL players in the secondary now. Still a lot of holes on that defense, but like I said in my power rankings, I think these two are the cream of the crop in the NFL. You put the Rams and the Eagles right there with these two, and we're going to get to see this again later in the season on Sunday Night Football. So risers for the Vikings, we talked about Kirk Cousins looking great. He's going to go up 1 this week. And then Stephon Diggs as well. We almost moved him up last week, but played well again in this one. So he's starting to near that top 10 receiver rank. And then Laquan Treadwell is going to fall this week. Don't really need to explain that if you watch the game. Frankly, I'm surprised that they don't just cut ties with him at this point. And then Brian O'Neill, right tackle, fills in for Rashad Hill, who went up last week. Third-round pick, was considered very raw, undersized. He put on like 15 pounds between the draft and this season. So he comes right in and at least does his job as a pass protector. Now, I still think he's got a long way to go as a run blocker. When you're super tall and light like that, he is athletic, but in order to be a good run blocker, you either just bully them into the ground or you play with good leverage. And he's kind of an awkward size where he's really not going to bully a whole lot of people at like 6'7", 300 pounds, which sounds big, but for an offensive tackle in the NFL, that's actually kind of undersized, at least weight-wise. So he's really going to have to improve on his leverage ability and overall skill as a run blocker. So anyway, on the Packers side, a couple fallers on the defense. Kentrell Brice was just embarrassing in this one. If he does his job on 2 plays, Green Bay probably wins this one. You look at the big Stephon Diggs touchdown. Really, all Green Bay needs to do is up 2 scores, just have Minnesota have a long touchdown drive if they are going to score. The last thing you can give up in that situation is a deep ball to one of the best deep ball receivers in the NFL, Stephon Diggs. Kentrell Brice playing single high safety, doesn't see Stephon Diggs coming, chooses to come down and triple team Laquan Treadwell, who's having a terrible game, which leaves Stephon Diggs one-on-one down the field with your worst corner, at least your slowest one, Devon House. So that lets Minnesota right back in the game, and then he also lets the ball go right between his hands on the what would be go-ahead or a game-tying touchdown, rather, down the sideline. An amazing catch by Thielen, but the ball literally went right between Kentrell Brice's hands, so he's going to want that one back. Anyway, he's going to come down 1 this week. I think Green Bay's got to get him off the field, and then Nick Perry down 1 as well. The pass rush for Green Bay is just not working right now, which is definitely a concern against a so-so Minnesota offensive line. So let's keep moving. Kansas City at Pittsburgh. You could argue this one's the game of the week as well. Not much else I can say about this Kansas City offense that you guys aren't going to be hearing on NFL Network or podcasts or whatever you get your NFL content from. This Chiefs offense has made it very clear that they are explosive. They have the most exciting young quarterback in the NFL. And then on the other side, they just kind of stink defensively. Hopefully Eric Berry can come back and kind of raise the floor of this defense, which will make them even more competitive, but we'll see. And then pretty much the same can be said about Pittsburgh. The defense sucks, but offensively, they just have way too much firepower. They've got a dominant offensive line. You got Big Ben, Antonio Brown, some good young receivers, Juju, James Washington, James Conner is playing well at running back. Who knows what's going on with Le'Veon Bell? So this was a shootout and pretty much went according to plan. The risers and fallers this week, just risers out of this one. Patrick Mahomes is going to get another +1 this week. He's got another big game this week taking on the 49ers. You would think at some point he's going to slow down and take a step back from what he's doing, but hasn't given us any signs of doing so yet. And then Sammy Watkins is going to go at +1 as well this week. He played outstanding, just intensifying how many explosive options Mahomes has. And then on Pittsburgh's side, Jesse James, a massive performance this week. I've tended to be a little lower on him. He reminds me so much of Kyle Rudolph, but I did have him rated much lower than that. So he's going to get a +2 this week, going from 69 to a 71. On to Colts at Washington. I said the Colts were going to cover in this game. I didn't know if they were going to win or not, and they did. They went into Washington and had a pretty convincing win. I said all offseason, don't worry about Andrew Luck. He's going to be fine. This was the plan the whole time. But I also said this Colts defense is wildly underrated. Is it the best defense in the NFL? No. But they play extremely tough up front, which is a great building block. And then you add in the draft a guy like Darius Leonard, who is going to be my star of the week. You go back to my deep dive, I said if they can get some of these rookies like Darius Leonard or Kamoko Toure to emerge as impact players, then this is going to be a very serviceable defense. That's exactly what we saw in Washington, just dominating up front against a good Washington offensive line. But as far as Leonard is concerned, he's got everything you want in a modern linebacker. He's got ideal size. He's like 6'2", 235. He's fast. He can move from sideline to sideline. He covers well. He gets into the backfield, makes tackles before the running back gets past the defensive line, meeting guys in holes. So he's going to move up 3 this week. We'll see if he continues to play at that high of a level. And then on Washington's side, this is kind of what we worried about with Washington's defense, is that they have some really physical players. They're tough and gritty, but when it comes to the attention to detail, overall skill, maybe speed, those aren't necessarily strengths of this defense. We started to see that a little bit this week. And then offensively, kind of started to see that floor of Alex Smith. It's the reason the Chiefs move on to Patrick Mahomes. It's the reason he wasn't worth a first-round pick. He's worth a second and a corner. He's a great game-managing quarterback. I still think very highly of Alex Smith, but when you're going up against an Andrew Luck, and the defense can take away some of those underneath horizontal offense things and the play-action boots, it can be tough on Alex Smith. So we talked about Darius Leonard as a riser in this one, and then another riser is going to be Jihad Ward, was picked up from Oakland, who got released. He was a somewhat high draft pick, but didn't work out in Oakland. He comes in to Indianapolis. Now he's part of the rotation here, but he played really well this week. So he's going to go up 3. He was actually really low at a 64 as like a replacement level depth play, but he definitely played above that level this week. Next, we got the Chargers at the Bills. Not a whole lot of surprises in this one. The Bills offense is still struggling. I do think Josh Allen looked pretty good in this one, all things considered. But the big surprise here was the Bills defense came out really flat. Now, they started to bunker down a little bit as the Chargers kind of went into chew clock mode in the second half. But Phillip Rivers could really do whatever he wanted with this defense in Buffalo, which is not something we've seen quarterbacks do over the last couple seasons. So the Chargers offense looks freaking outstanding. And then the defense, they haven't been what they were last year. A big part of that is Joey Bosa's not in there, their best player. So we're going to have to just kind of take a wait-and-see approach with this Chargers defense, I think. But I will say, Derwin James, he's not going to rise in the roster this week because I'm already incredibly high on him. But he's already looking like one of the best safeties in the NFL. They move him all over the field. Such a versatile player. What a steal. So let's talk about the risers and fallers from this game. On the Chargers side, it's going to be Kaiser White. He's playing a lot of reps as that sort of outside linebacker, bandit safety, nickel linebacker role, playing really well in coverage as a converted college safety. So he's going to go +3 from 65 to a 68. And then a couple fallers on the Bills side, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Both these guys kind of career average starters at the safety position. Hyde was a corner in Green Bay for a while, and they had just monster breakout seasons last year, having a really quiet start to this year, kind of returning to earth in terms of how you'd expect these guys to perform. So -1 a piece for those guys. Still really nice players, though. Now we got Detroit at San Francisco. Detroit, I thought, responded pretty well to an embarrassing outing in the home opener. It's still a team that is lacking the talent they're going to need to really compete in this NFC. Stafford played pretty well. I really like these receivers. The offensive line is fine. It's a pretty solid offense, though I don't think they have any elite talent on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, it's just kind of a mess in my opinion. You got a new coach, new scheme. Outside of Darius Slay and maybe Glover Quinn, who's getting up there in age, you really don't have any stars on that defense. I'm not a big Ezekiel Ansah guy, who to be honest must have been out this week because watching that game I didn't even notice him. So either he's out and they need him back, or he was in there and didn't do anything. And then on the 49ers side, this looks like a team that is very well coached, very well quarterbacked, who's doing everything they can to out-scheme teams, because at least on the offensive side of the ball, they do not have much talent at all. I like George Kittle. I think while he has the upside of Travis Kelce, he's not anywhere close to that right now as far as his route running ability is concerned and his ability to get open. With Marcus Goodwin out, this team has no receivers that can get open, and it shows on film. Jimmy Garoppolo was holding the ball a lot this game. Good job of not forcing too much. He did throw what could have been a seriously costly interception after as the Lions kind of came in the back door in the fourth quarter. Luckily, there was a holding call, but that could have been really bad on Jimmy, and it was pretty bad. He just got lucky. And then defensively, it's a really solid defense. They're going to get Reuben Foster back. That's definitely going to help. You guys know I'm pretty high on this Niners team. So we got a couple risers this week for Detroit. Deshaun Hand playing really well on that D-line. Another Alabama defensive lineman playing well in the NFL. Really no surprise there. And then Matt Breida, +5 this week. You could say he's a star of the week. He's leading the NFL in rushing. He looks outstanding. I think this team, if they could reassess what they had in Matt Breida all along, they probably don't give Jerick McKinnon that contract for like $30 million, because Matt Breida looks like everything Jerick McKinnon brings to the table, if not more. So he's kind of breaking out in this league. So that's going to put a wrap on that one. Now we're going to talk about the Monday Night Football game. Seattle at Chicago. This one looked just like I thought it would. Chicago's defense is legit. Really good pass rush. We knew that they were going to come in and dominate Seattle up front. On the offensive side of the ball for Chicago, really concerned about this offense, mainly Mitch Trubisky, who's going to be the dud of the week. He reminds me so much of Blake Bortles. Not the Blake Bortles we saw this week. The Blake Bortles that we had gotten to get familiar with over the last couple of years. Just indecisive, panicky under pressure, can get inaccurate at times, but also a really good scrambler. Now, I'm not writing him off, but you do kind of start to get the feeling that if this Chicago team comes up short this year, it could be because of Mitch Trubisky. And then you talk about the Seattle side. Now, I still think this is an incredibly underrated defense. I thought they played pretty well in this one. You got to keep in mind, they're still out KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner, who are just critical pieces of that defense. They're favored at home against the Cowboys this week. They got to get Wagner back at least. I'm standing by Seattle as a pretty tough out this year. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I do think this defense is going to prove to be really underrated by the end of the year. We saw Shaq Griffin play really well at corner in this one too. So the risers and fallers this week, Deion Jordan for the Seahawks. I kind of pegged him for a breakout year. He's getting very limited reps. He's only playing 14, 15 snaps, and he's looked all right as a pass rusher when he's been in, but definitely not playing at that high level he was at the end of last year yet, at least. So he's going to come down 3. And then for the Bears, Roy Robertson Harris starting to get more involved in that rotation there. He's going to get a +1 this week, looking pretty good against that Seahawks line. We talked about Mitch Trubisky going down, and then James Daniels. This one's a bit of a surprise. A lot of people had him, myself included, as a first-round prospect, at least a late first-rounder. He falls into the second, and everyone kind of thinks the Bears got a steal here. Now, he played center at Iowa. They choose to go with a Whitehair, who's been their center. So most people thought James Daniels was going to start there at left guard, which is a pretty big hole. They got Eric Kush, the former Hard Knocks star, playing, and it's not like Kush has been terrible, but he's not really killing it. So just by virtue of not winning that starting job, being a second-round pick, I think we got to start to lower the expectations for James Daniels just a little bit, and that's what we're doing here. He's going to fall down 3 from a 75, which was a really respectable ranking, down to a 72. So I still think he gets a chance at some point. I still think he could be pretty good. Just might not be quite as big of an impact rookie as we had originally thought. All right, New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Not a whole lot to say in this one. Dallas's offense did respond well. Dak Prescott played much better. And defensively, looked pretty much like I thought they would. The pass rush was hitting home. I think that's the strength of this defense, and it really benefited the guys in the second level, as really across the board, this defense played really well, better than they've played in a long time. And I do think it's a pretty good Dallas defense. And then on the Giants side, what a mess. We kind of pegged this as an average defense, at least I did on this channel, but the offense has taken no steps forward with the selection of Saquon Barkley and adding Will Hernandez and Nate Solder. And it's Eli Manning, it's the offensive line, it's just more of the same. And I think everyone from Giants fans to possibly the people in that front office looking at Sam Darnold like, oh, okay, yeah, we screwed up. So the risers and fallers here, we got a couple here for Dallas. Nothing on the New York side. I thought they looked just like I've got them ranked. So we're going to have Byron Jones continuing to play at a very high level at corner. His PFF grades are off the charts right now. He's playing every snap at cornerback. I'm ready to admit I was wrong. I didn't think he was going to be able to go from being an unsuccessful safety for the last couple of years, switch over to corner, which is a much harder position, and be a stud. And he's looked great thus far. But then we also talked about Jordan Lewis last week, and we're kind of wondering what was going on here, because he's not playing at all. He played no snaps in week 1 and plays 1 snap this week. So he's going to come down 2 this week. Now, I still think he could play in the event of an injury, but where I had him ranked, he should have been starting over Anthony Brown at nickel corner. And to not even be part of a rotation here, this goes to show he might not be quite as good as we thought, at least right now. So next up, we got New England at Jacksonville. Crazy game. Easily Blake Bortles' best game of his career. Really impressed in this one. Yes, Jacksonville did a really good job of getting receivers open, taking advantages of the weaknesses on that New England defense, but you gotta credit Blake Bortles for executing when there was pressure on him, which wasn't too much this game. But when the pass rush did get in, he did a really good job not panicking, either scrambling or stepping up. He doesn't quite have the same step-up game that you see from the elite quarterbacks, but he did better than I've seen in the past of sensing pressure, buying a little bit of time, and finding the open man. Need to continue to see more from him, but this was a great step in the right direction for the BB gun. Jacksonville's defense, we know they're good. And then on New England's side, oh man, I'm worried. And I'm not worried about the offense. And we do this every year, and I already talked about this, so I'll keep it quick. The offense will be fine. But I just think at some point, you got to be able to physically match up with these explosive offenses in the NFL. This was the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they made New England look like a Big 12 defense this week. And with a much improved AFC, and with some super explosive offenses in there, I just have a hard time seeing New England doing what they've been able to do in the past and just scheming this into a top 10 defense. Now, the best player in this game for them was Trey Flowers, who left the game very early, and who knows if just getting that extra pass rush could have completely changed the landscape of this game. But you definitely see without Trey Flowers, this is one of the worst fronts in terms of pass rush in the NFL. So Jacksonville impresses. I'm about halfway there on admitting I was wrong. If they can do similar things to a Marcus Mariota-led Titans team this weekend at home, I think I'll continue to get there. But that said, I can't just let one good Blake Bortles game completely change my opinion of him and this offense. So let's talk about the risers in this game. We've got 3 risers for Jacksonville. Blake Bortles is going to go up 1 this week. Now, in my mind, it's like a 1.5. I almost went with the +2, but I just need to see it again. So if he plays well again this weekend, I'll give him this credit. We'll get him up to a 74. And then Corey Grant, the running back, the receiving back, was excellent. Blessing in disguise, at least for this matchup with Leonard Fournette out. I think obviously you'd rather have Leonard Fournette than not, but it allowed this offense to completely open things up. Forget about the running game. That is the strength of New England's defense, is their run defense. And this allowed them to open things up. And Corey Grant played exceptional. So he's emerging as one of the better receiving backs in this league. Entered the league as sort of just a speedster, but he's crafted his game and is developed. He's really impressing. And then we got Keelan Cole. He might be my favorite player on this Jags team. An undrafted kid. I want to say he's out of like Kentucky Wesleyan. Really good scouting there by Jacksonville. But he's the best receiver on this team. Very clearly. I think he's better than Marquise Lee as well. He's a good route runner. He's clearly got very good hands, as we saw. Definitely emerging as a playmaker that this team needs. So moving on to the next game here, Miami at New York Jets. And if there's any Dolphins fans left listening to me on this channel, after, for lack of a better term, my lack of love for the Dolphins over this summer, my lack of faith in Ryan Tannehill, if there are any Dolphins fans left, get ready to roll your eyes, because it's, despite you winning this game, I did not walk away overly impressed. Now, let me say some nice things about the Dolphins that I truly believe in. I think I was underselling the defense. The addition of Robert Quinn turning out to be a pretty good move. The pass rush looks great. You got some playmakers in the secondary. I love Minkah Fitzpatrick. Rashad Jones is great. Got some fast linebackers. It's a very feisty defense. And for that reason, this team's going to spoil some upset wins and stuff. But when it comes to this offense and Ryan Tannehill, this game tells you everything you need to know about what Ryan Tannehill is in terms of his skill set, what his own team thinks about him, and how they want to use him to win games. And that is keep everything simple, run the ball, screens on first and second down, horizontal offense, make it as easy as possible so that Ryan Tannehill does not get stuck in third and long situations. Because other than one nice play to A.J. Darby, and I can't remember if this was on first, second, or third down, but this was really the only time he went beyond his first read on any play in this game, at least successfully. You watch him on third downs, almost no mobility in the pocket, poor ability to sense pressure, not looking downfield. This team was awful on third down. I think the Dolphins recognize that that is part of who they are, and they need to win with defense, turnovers, taking care of the football on offense, and hope for some big plays. Now, I get that they're 2-0, but I don't know if there are too many teams in the NFL that I personally feel like I have as good of a grasp on from an identity standpoint. And then you talk about the Jets, where we've got an identity crisis. On the defensive side of the ball, I like their defense. They have some holes, but Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams up front, you got some really nice pieces there. And then on offense, some of you guys are going to roll your eyes, but I walked away crazy impressed with Sam Darnold in this game. I went in kind of preparing for the worst. You guys know I have really planted my flag on Sam Darnold, but I feel even more confident now than I did before that Darnold can kind of survive here, despite really poor line play and receivers, and that he is going to be mature enough and smart enough to learn from his mistakes, which he did have another dumb interception in this game. But you do realize Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers, who I think is a really good comparison, is a combo of those two. He's got the same kind of mobility aspect to his game that Andrew Luck has. I think a similar arm talent as Andrew Luck. And then has sort of that weird, funky release that Phillip Rivers has that just kind of works and results in just crazy accurate throws. I see all of that in Sam Darnold. But the reason I'm so confident that he can, what I said, survive here, is this is now back-to-back games where he's come out, had a bad mistake early, interception on him, and then completely respond and look like, frankly, an elite quarterback. Sam Darnold in this game, sensing pressure, making crazy accurate throws, and show that willingness to explore the medium, deep sidelines aspects of the passing game that we see so many quarterbacks like his counterpart, Ryan Tannehill, being afraid to look downfield. So I'll stop running on about Sam Darnold, but I walked away really impressed in this game. His receivers really let him down in this one. He's also running for his life all game, and he still had a really nice game. And we're going to see Sam Darnold take on the team that I think should have drafted him on Thursday Night Football. So anyway, risers and fallers in this one, I'm going to lower Ryan Tannehill. Now, a big part of this is last week we kind of had an overhaul, lowering a bunch of quarterbacks to create that differential, and Ryan Tannehill was not hit by that. I walked away really unimpressed in this game by Tannehill, so he's going to come down 1, and then Sam Darnold is going to go up 1. It's a combination of what he did last week and this week. And then a couple more risers for the Dolphins. A.J. Darby, he's going to go up +2. He's the number 1 tight end here. They're using Mike Gesicki, but A.J. Darby playing really well. Did get a touchdown in this one down the field. And then Robert Quinn, he's seeming to find a little bit of what he once had. Had a couple washed up years for the Rams, but he's playing really well here. So he's going to go up +2. And then for the Jets, we've got Jamal Adams +1. Just a stud, period. Young player, going to keep getting better. And then Robbie Anderson's going to come down 2. Kind of a lot of hype surrounding him coming into the year, but really not a big piece of this offense. He did catch a touchdown week 1, but just not playing at the level you'd like to see. But then Quincy Enunwa, who went up last week, he's going to go up again. He's really the focal point of this entire offense. They move him around inside, outside. He accelerates extremely well for a thick wide receiver. And what he can do in the middle of the field is great for what Sam Darnold likes to do with the football. And then Jermaine Kearse is going to go down. Barely getting used here. He's basically getting faded out here. So he's going to go -2. This Jets team has got to find some better weapons outside of Quincy Enunwa for Darnold to help him and his development. And then you had another one here, Brian Winters. Had him rated really low, had a really down year last year, as did a lot of Jets. But this is a guard that they're paying a decent amount of money. He's played at a high level in the past, and he looks to be back to that at least somewhat this year, so he's going to go a +2. All right, we got 3 games left. Carolina at Atlanta. My takeaway from Carolina is actually similar to what we said about the Jets. I thought Cam Newton played really well in this game, did everything he could to win this game, but his receivers dropping balls, leading to interceptions. I thought that position group really cost them this game. And then Atlanta responds really well offensively. Matt Ryan played really well. No, he's not going to go up in my roster. He played like an 82 overall quarterback should play like. He still missed some deep throws here to Julio Jones, who looks very frustrated that they can't connect on those deep attempts. So I think we saw 2 teams with good offenses. Both teams dealing with some injuries on either side of the ball. Offensive line for Carolina, coverage unit for Atlanta. As far as the risers and fallers go for this game, just one. It's going to be Ricardo Allen. Getting a +2 for Atlanta. I was probably a little low on him. He's playing really well this year. He's been kind of a mainstay at free safety for them, and it's time I give him a little love. Now let's talk about Philadelphia at Tampa Bay. On the Philly side, they just are not a good offense led by Nick Foles. That much is clear. In the defense, I'm starting to slowly have some concerns about this front seven that was just outright dominant last year. You know, I'm not going to lower anyone yet until I see them play poorly with the energy that having Carson Wentz on the other side of the ball gives you. But I am definitely worried about the secondary for Philadelphia. And then for Tampa Bay, seemingly everyone wants me to freak out and say this is a top 15 team. They're 2-0. They've beaten 2 really good teams, even though I don't think Philly's a very good team in week 2 with Nick Foles and a bunch of injuries. And I don't know what happened with New Orleans. I'll credit Tampa for that one. But we're going to have some risers for Tampa that we'll talk about. But I'm just not ready to go there and saying that this is going to be this explosive top 10 offense or that this defense is anything special. This defense still got shredded in week 1. Look, they're going to have a primetime football game against a pissed-off Steelers team. If they come out, play good defense, look pretty good on offense, and win the game, I can't just ignore that, but I'm just not ready to come all in on this Bucs team. I'm not. So let's talk about the risers and fallers here. Justin Evans, the free safety, is going to go up 1 this week. Played really well against Philly. Deshaun Jackson, back-to-back weeks, just insane. He's having a bit of a renaissance, so he's going to go up 1 after being really quiet his first year in Tampa. And then O.J. Howard, so good to see him playing well. I had him as a top 6 player in that class, and he was just nowhere to be found last year. Did have a good end to his season. Tight end is a bit of a hard position to learn. We don't see a lot of rookie tight ends playing well. So O.J. Howard seems like he's breaking out. This is the second week in a row he's going up. I almost gave him a +2. We're just going to go with +1. But he's very quickly making Cameron Brate, who they just gave an extension, an afterthought. So we'll see if he continues to play at the very high level that he's playing at. And then the last game here, the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. Man, the Browns almost stole one. And how would that just change the narrative here for both teams? The Saints could have started 0-2, but the Cleveland defense is completely legit. I thought they'd be all right this year. They're playing much better than I thought they would. Larry Ogunjobi is a beast over the middle. Still want to see him play with better leverage, but his handwork is impressive as a D tackle. Myles Garrett's incredible. The secondary playing way better than they did last year. Even Jamie Collins, who seemed like he didn't care about football anymore based on his last couple years playing well. But then on the offensive side of the ball, they got a lot of work to do. The offensive line, the weapons are, I think, still overrated. I mean, really all you have right now is Jarvis Landry, who I really like but doesn't create separation. Antonio Callaway, super young player who I think has a bright future, but in development. And then David Njoku, who everyone wants to be just incredible, but is rough around the edges. He doesn't run crisp routes. He doesn't always catch the ball. He has a bunch of bad drops. Not a great blocker either. So it's not pretty on offense. Really excited to see this Jets-Browns matchup. Could this be Cleveland's first win in almost 2 years? And then for the Saints, they did what they needed to get back into this game. The defense did a good job of hanging in there this week, something they couldn't do last week. So we'll find out as the season goes on what kind of defense we're looking at here in New Orleans. Then offensively, Michael Thomas is just awesome. Drew Brees, they got so many weapons. Slow start in this one, but they figured it out as the game went on. So we got two risers here from this game, both for Cleveland. They're going to be Jabril Peppers. Now, he's not a full-time starter here, but they're using him as that box safety, the strong safety, which is where he should have been all along, not at free safety, and he's proving that it's a good fit for him and he can play it well. So he's going to go up one this week. And then Antonio Callaway, who we mentioned, had a huge touchdown to go ahead in this one. They trade away Josh Gordon. Seems to be an endorsement of what they think about Callaway. We'll see if he can continue to impress in the coming weeks, and we'll shoot him back up. So that is everything. We tried to keep it shorter, but I'd rather cover everything than cut stuff out. Really looking forward to week 3. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. Cheers, and we'll see you next time.